Namco.
Namco. If you grew up playing video games in the 90s, there's a high chance that you've played a game by this legendary developer, a Japanese developer who, in my opinion, released some of the best games in that decade, along with Capcom and Konami. From horror series Splatterhouse, light gun classics Time Crisis and Point Blank, to fighting game favourites Soul Calibur and Tekken, they truly were a master of their craft and have released some of the most pioneering and genre-defining video game experiences both in the arcade and for home consoles.
He's the one for me. There's no place I'd rather be. Yeah, yeah, yeah. To the finish line. Everywhere you look, he's right on time.
One of my personal favourite series within Namco's vault is Ridge Racer, a franchise which over time has become less and less of a tentpole title for the developer, as we haven't seen a console release game since 2012's somewhat disappointing Ridge Racer Unbounded, developed in part by Namco but mainly Bugbear Entertainment, who had created the Flatout series. It is within the Ridge Racer franchise that brings us to the topic of today's discussion, a title that remains an anomaly in the series and one that deviated from the established formula and faded into relative obscurity. This wasn't your typical driving game, nor was it a straightforward action title. Instead, it occupied a strange liminal space, a vehicular racing game infused with a narrative sensibility, a game that, in retrospect, reveals fascinating insight into design and development choices, cultural influences, and the fleeting nature of memory itself. Today, we drift through memory with Critical Velocity.
Ridge Racer.
To understand Critical Velocity, we need to acknowledge the legacy it inherited. The Ridge Racer series had built its reputation on pure racing pleasure. Tight controls, exhilarating drifts, and a banging techno dance style soundtrack were the pillars of its appeal. More than a racing game, it was a cultural touchstone, a symbol of technological innovation and a testament to the enduring power of simple yet perfectly executed gameplay. In 1993, Namco, already a giant in the arcade scene, unleashed Ridge Racer to arcades around the world. Compared to the blocky polygonal racers that preceded it, Ridge Racer was a revelation. Its smooth, dynamic camera angles, vibrant colours, and most importantly, its accessible yet challenging drift mechanics set a new standard. The game was a technical marvel, showcasing the power of Namco's System 22 arcade board and introducing texture map polygons and Garou shading to the racing genre. Beyond the technical achievements, Ridge Racer possessed an undeniable charisma. The fictional Ridge City, a sun-drenched metropolis with towering skyscrapers and winding coastal roads, felt alive and inviting. The music, a blend of techno and house, pulsed with energy.
Let it hit 'em.
Perfectly complementing the high-octane gameplay. Ridge Racer wasn't just a game, it was an experience. And if you ever got to play Ridge Racer full scale in the arcade, then this sentiment rings even more true. The game's success in the arcade paved way for the highly anticipated debut on Sony's PlayStation console in 1994. The PlayStation version was a slightly simplified port, but it retained the core gameplay and spirit of the arcade original. More importantly, it became a launch title for the system, a move that would become synonymous with the release of new Sony hardware, with Ridge Racer 5, 7, and Ridge Racer all releasing at launch with their respective console. A sequel, Ridge Racer Revolution, arrived in 1995 for the PlayStation, refining the formula and adding new features such as mirrored tracks and the ability to unlock even more extra cars. It cemented the franchise position as a leader in the arcade racing genre and further honed the drift mechanics that were now its signature. Rage Racer, released in 1996, took a darker, more serious tone. The vibrant colours were replaced with a more muted palette, the music became more aggressive and the gameplay more challenging. It was a nice change of pace, but fans were craving the aesthetic and light-hearted fun of the original. By 1998, the franchise was back on track and in top form, with the release of Ridge Racer Type 4. Often regarded as one of the best entries in the series, R4 was a masterpiece, not only in terms of aesthetics and style, but also in terms of substance and content. The visuals were stunning, the music was sublime, opening track, Urban Fragments, still gives me chills, and the gameplay was refined to near perfection. The game introduced a compelling career mode with multiple storylines and endings, adding depth and replayability. Ridge Racer Type 4 transcended video games and the racing genre. It was a work of art, and a testament to the power of video games as an artistic medium. The early 2000s saw the Ridge Racer franchise branching out to different consoles. Ridge Racer 5 on the PlayStation 2, showcasing the console's graphical and processing capabilities. While visually impressive, it lacked the innovation and charm of its predecessors. Ridge Racer 64 also debuted for the Nintendo 64 console, with a port to Nintendo's DS handheld coming in 2004. Sony, not to be outdone, had their own handheld system, the PlayStation Portable, and in December of 2004 in Japan, Namco would release Ridge Racer for the PSP. The game was a visually stunning portable rendition of the arcade experience, offering 60 frames per second gameplay and introducing nitro boosts to the series for even more exhilarating speeds and monster drifting. It's at this point then that brings us to the development of Critical Velocity. When some of the team behind Ridge Racer on the PSP were finished on that project, they set to work on a new PlayStation 2 driving game under the short-lived title of Rune Chaser, and it's rumoured they were heavily influenced by the style and success of Grand Theft Auto 3, released in 2001. An odd choice seeing as the series wasn't particularly a big seller in Japan, with Grand Theft Auto 5 being the first in the series to sell over 1 million units. And given the Namco team's relative inexperience with creating such a game, it's interesting then that Critical Velocity has a distinctly Western-influenced aesthetic, from its non-Japanese protagonists Saul and Gordon, English map and road signs, to the right-hand side driving and American-style back alleys and buildings. Sadly, the game would never get localised for the Western market and would remain a Japanese exclusive. Now, the racing genre was in a different place since the release of Ridge Racer 5, as the early 2000s saw a growing trend towards narrative-driven experiences in video games, and racing games were not immune to this influence. Titles like Need for Speed Underground and the Midnight Club series successfully integrated storylines, character development, and customization options, offering a deeper level of engagement than traditional arcade racers. This shift towards richer, more cinematic experiences also likely played a significant role in Namco's decision to experiment with the narrative structure and critical velocity, and to adapt to this changing landscape, to infuse the classic Ridge Racer driving formula with a dose of narrative ambition, all presented in an open world setting. Still, grand aspirations aside, the team would finish the project, and their ambitious open world mission-based Ridge Racer spin-off Critical Velocity would release in Japan only on the 13th of October 2005 for the PlayStation 2.
なんか面白そうだ。追うぞ。それが余計なことだってんだよ。
その走り限界知らず。全開ドライビングアクション。クリティカルベロシティ。やんちゃが過ぎるぜ。
So the Ridge Racer series had always been about pure, high-velocity, arcade-style racing gameplay, meaning the introduction of a narrative in Critical Velocity risked disrupting this delicate balance. But thankfully, the constant interplay between driving missions and narrative keeps the fairly basic mission structure feeling fresh, providing a layer of context that elevates it beyond just simple circuit races. The story, as outlandish as it is engaging, puts you in control of Saul and his partner Gordon, who work as stormers, vigilante bounty hunters who possess advanced driving skill sets, taking on various requests and missions from those who need someone that knows how to handle high-speed pursuits and dangerous situations. You operate in Prio City, a sprawling and intricate metropolis that expands into winding highways, picturesque coastal towns, and majestic mountainous runs. Prio City is in crisis. Rising crime rates and a rapid rise in population have resulted in the formation of gangs and large criminal organisations. Along the way, Saul and Gordon will encounter and befriend local stormers Hope and Diana, have numerous run-ins with Police Chief Hartman, and garner attention from an evil crime syndicate across 26 main story missions, unravelling a conspiracy theory that is ravaging the once peaceful Prio City. This isn't just about winning races, it's about gathering intelligence, stopping the evil syndicate's plans, and ultimately bringing them down. This narrative is presented through in-game and pre-rendered cutscenes.
そんなグリフィ
While the in-game graphics are visually dated by modern standards, the pre-rendered cutscenes hold up well. These cutscenes exude a B-movie charm. The dialogue is cheesy, the plot twists can be predictable, and the characters are larger than life.
あんたたち
But this is precisely the point. Critical Velocity embraces its absurdity wholeheartedly, creating a world and tone that is both captivating and knowingly ridiculous. The narrative integration extends beyond the cutscenes. Races aren't just isolated events, they are missions, each with specific objectives that contribute to the overarching storyline. You might be tasked with tailing a suspect, protecting a VIP, or even transporting an injured dog to the hospital who has been caught in the middle of the gangland crossfire. These missions are presented in a linear fashion in the open world of Prio City. Gameplay involves driving to the location of the mission, represented by the red icon on the map, completing the mission within the time limit presented, and in return, opening the location of the next mission. This also acts as a way to open different parts of the map, as not every area is unlocked from the start. Players can also take on side missions, unrelated to the story. These are called free missions. and are represented by a yellow icon on the map. These range from competing in races, taking on deliveries and such. By performing well in missions and completing them, you also gain credits. These can be used to upgrade your current car, buy new cars, or pay off any police fines if you get busted. The car tuning upgrades are basic but welcome, as the car you start with is quite slow and sluggish, and the first handful of missions offer very little challenge or variety. Stick with it though, and the game starts to open up, both in terms of gameplay and story. Later missions can become quite a challenge and offer a bit more variety, meaning these upgrades become integral in the back half of the game, and also create an improved driving experience, offering better grip, drifting abilities and handling to the player. Critical Velocity also introduces a nitro boost, which the team had added as a series first while working on Ridge Racer for the PSP. By drifting or narrowly missing traffic, players can build up the boost bar, and this can come in handy when evading the police or lagging behind in a mission. Critical Velocity serves up a nice mixture of Crazy Taxi's point-to-point arcade-style gameplay, Chase HQ's pursue and destroy carnage, and Burnout's thrill of speed, not to mention Ridge Racer's drift mechanic, which in Critical Velocity feels a bit heavier than Ridge Racer's often light, floatier feel. It's the driving in the game that really impresses, flexing Namco's pedigree in racing game development. The physics and handling of each car feels varied enough to warrant experimenting with different vehicles, and the controls are tight and responsive. And I would say the driving and car control in this game actually exceeds that of Grand Theft Auto 3, although you can't run people over in Critical Velocity, and there are no on-foot sections or weapons. Which brings me to some negatives about the game. A common complaint I see with Critical Velocity is the extreme and aggressive police rubber banding and AI behaviour. You could nitro boost away from them, thinking you're in the clear, only for them to pop out of nowhere and blow you up, or severely impacting the mission's completion. They are relentless, acting more like a lock-on missile than a real opponent to evade. This in turn though can create some memorable chases rather than leading to total frustration. Also, as mentioned earlier, some of the later missions can become quite a challenge, almost to its detriment, leading to a lot of this, and some of this. Critical Velocity graphically is competent but not groundbreaking. It has some excellent pre-rendered cutscenes, showcasing the usual Namco quality, offering some nicely detailed hair physics and animation. The car models are nice, but not too detailed, offering an arcadey sort of charm. Character models and animations are well done, but it's Prio City itself that I feel is the main star. Due to the game's lack of detail and fine texturing, the draw distance is actually quite impressive for the map size, operating in an 8x9 kilometre space, creating a grand sense of scale and scope, with absolutely no load times while driving through the varied expanse. Namco did an excellent job with the design and layout of the world. Everything just feels like it should be there, and the sense of flow and creation surrounding the densely packed back alleys of downtown Prio City make the roads a joy to traverse, adding an immersion and character to the game. Rather than your usual synth-heavy and high-octane techno house tunes, Namco went with a much more chilled affair for the soundtrack of Critical Velocity. Saxophones and intricate drumming are the main stars, in a jazz fusion-inspired soundtrack. It's good and well orchestrated, complementing the style and aesthetic of the game. Given the jazzy film noir nature of the music, it thematically fits in with narrative elements in the story, evoking a sense of danger, intrigue, and romance, themes often found in the film noir genre. Extra tracks can be purchased with accumulated credits at the shop. While some are similar in sound, these offer a bit more variety to the soundtrack. It's definitely worth a listen, and was composed by Takada Ryuichi, who would go on to work on Tekken 6, and Junichi Nakatsuru, who had composed most of Namco's Soul Calibur series. Critical Velocity's ties to the Ridge Racer series aren't just rooted in its gameplay mechanics and development team. There's actually a few things referencing it to the franchise. Firstly, it has Ridge Racer car manufacturer sold at within the game, with the Chronale being available to unlock. Also, and probably most importantly, one of the areas on the map is actually the course Seaside Route 765 from the original Ridge Racer game, with the course featuring in one of the main story missions and free missions. It really is quite a reflective and transcending moment within the game. Putting it within the Ridge Racer universe shows Namco's willingness to experiment within an established franchise, to think outside the box, and also draw on influences from different media and popular culture. The usual Namco Easter eggs are present, with extra unlockable cars and franchise references, but perhaps more interestingly is Namco's homage to 80s and 90s American action cinema, with nods to such films like The Matrix and Terminator 2.
もう逃げ場はないぞ。ウィリアムス、おとなしく罪を認めろ。
Both in terms of its visuals and the characters, with the game also leaning towards the buddy cop vibe of films like Lethal Weapon. So why is it that Critical Velocity failed to excite gamers and fall into relative obscurity? And also, why did it never make it out of Japan, considering its obviously Western influence and style? For me, I think it comes down to the fact the game just wasn't received well by the Japanese public, or by Namco themselves. Those looking for another Ridge Racer styled experience were ultimately left disappointed, and those looking for a solid and robust Grand Theft Auto experience were left unimpressed with its lack of gritty violence and no on-foot gameplay. The PlayStation 2 era was also a time of great experimentation within gaming. Much like the generation before, we had numerous games of varying quality and uniqueness get localised for an English release. Touge 3 saw a release over here in the UK, rebranded as Road Rage 3. Battle Gear 2 released as Tokyo Road Race. We even had quirky and distinctly Japanese experiences in Demolition Girl and Paparazzi. So why no Critical Velocity? I think had this been released as a budget title in Europe and America, it could have potentially sold well. But ultimately, I think Namco were disappointed with the overall game, and it didn't live up to the company's usual high standards, with the cost of localization deemed a risk, which you can't blame Namco really, as this was 5 years into the PlayStation 2's life, and the next generation of consoles were about to hit, with the Xbox 360 launching in Japan on the 10th of December 2005, and what was going to be a launch title? Ridge Racer 6. So it's clear to see Namco's interest was elsewhere at the time, as this was only 2 months after the release of Critical Velocity. It also can't be understated how much the PlayStation 2 was a veritable cornucopia when it came to driving games, with over 400 released. 2005 alone saw the release of Gran Turismo 4, Need for Speed Most Wanted,
You're tuned to Crash FM. Welcome back to the world of
Burnout Revenge, and World Rally Championship Evolved. These titles offering some of the best regarded games within their respective franchises, and this is where consumers' money was probably going at the time, with Critical Velocity falling into the void. So what is it that makes Critical Velocity worthy of attention and retrospection? It's not simply nostalgia, though that in some way plays a role. Instead, it's the game's unique identity, its willingness to deviate from established conventions, and its distinct Western flavour that make it so compelling. In many ways, Critical Velocity embodies the spirit of the PlayStation 2 era, a time of experimentation, innovation, and a willingness to take risks. It was a game that dared to be different, a game that defied easy categorization, and a game that, despite its flaws, left a lasting impression on those few that have played it. But perhaps the most interesting aspect of Critical Velocity is the way it has aged in the collective memory. In the age of remakes and HD remasters of many classic titles, Critical Velocity has largely been forgotten. It's a game that exists primarily in the realm of memory, a fleeting echo of a bygone era. This, in itself, is a testament to the transient nature of gaming and the subjective power of nostalgia. Revisiting Critical Velocity today is a lesson in both appreciation and understanding. It's a chance to rediscover a unique and often overlooked title, to acknowledge its strengths and weaknesses, and to appreciate its contribution to the PlayStation 2's rich and diverse library. It's also a chance to reflect on the passage of time, the evolution of gaming, and the enduring power of memory. And Critical Velocity should be remembered. Sure, it's not a perfect game, but it is a memorable one. It's a game that deserves attention not just for what it was, but for what it represents. A bold experiment in game design, a testament to the power of Western influence, and a poignant reminder of the fleeting nature of time. As we all drift through the years, Critical Velocity remains a small but significant landmark on the long road of Namco's and gaming's history. A reminder that even the most obscure titles can hold valuable insights and lasting memories. The open world and design of Prio City, its goofy B-movie charm, and its catchy and distinct jazz soundtrack continue to resonate. A faint but persistent memory of a bygone era, and in that memory, a glimmer of the magic that made the PlayStation 2 a special and unforgettable platform.